Bridgewater Raritan Board of Education was provided on April 8th, 2020 by sending a 48-hour written notice to the Courier News, Star Ledger, Bridgewater Township Clerk, Raritan Borough Clerk, and by posting on the bulletin board in the Harmon V. Wade Administration Building. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Sending a 48-hour written notice
I
to
pledge
the Courier
allegiance
News,
to the
Star
flag
Ledger,
of the United States
Bridgewater
of
Township
America,
Clerk,
to the
Raritan Borough
republic
Clerk, and by
which
posting on the
stands
bulletin
one
board in the
nation
Harmon V.
under
Wade
God,
Administration
indivisible,
Building.
liberty
Please stand
and
for the Pledge of
justice for
Allegiance.
all.
Okay.
I pledge
Roll
allegiance
call,
to
please.
the flag of the United
Mrs.
States
Mead.
of America, to the republic which
Here.
stands one
Mrs.
nation
Pesey.
under
Here.
God,
Mrs. Hurley.
liberty and justice for all.
Here, sorry.
Roll call,
Mr. Singer.
please.
Mrs. Mead.
Here.
Mr. Walker.
Here.
Mr. Joshi. Mrs.
Present.
Pesey.
Here.
Mr. Malik. Mrs. Hurley. I didn't see Zach. Is Zach here?
Here, sorry.
Mr. Gladstone.
Here.
Mrs. Barlow. Mr. Walker.
Here.
Here.
Okay,
Mr. Joshi.
next we'll go to the student
Mr.
representatives
Malik,
report.
Mrs. Hurley.
Hi,
I didn't see Zach. Is Zach
can you
here?
hear me?
Here.
Yes, we can.
Mr. Gladstone.
April 3rd, 2020 was the last day of marking period 3 and the fourth marking period cycle begins today. The high school moved to an A-B alternating schedule for online learning starting after the break. There have been a lot of fun ways that teachers have been engaging students
yes,
and
we can.
families. One example is that both of our teachers, Ms. Simcabeller, posts links to songs that her son picks out, and another way that teachers have been connecting students with their families is through fun assignments. So one of my orchestra assignments was to teach a parent who's never played the violin before how to hold the instrument and play Twinkle Twinkle. And my dad, he really enjoyed that. And another way that teachers
During this time, students and families are being very resourceful and connecting with each other in new ways. For example, students created an Instagram account so students could share where they have submitted next school year, and family and friends are staying connected through video conferencing applications, and face-to-face physical activities continue to practice through Zoom meetings. We even heard of community organizations connecting students with senior citizens who could become each other's pen pals. FHLA, the Future Health Leaders of America Club, is raising money for Doctors Without Borders. And the class of 2022 is purchasing PPE, personal protective equipment for Robert Wood Johnson University Hospital. And the 92 students who took the National Latin exam did really well. 79 out of 92 students earned an award, with 24 students earning the Gold Summa Cum Laude, the highest award for the exam's top scorers.
While school is not in session, some clubs are getting creative and doing activities remotely. Chris Doe, a BRHS freshman and media student, won the Audience Choice Award in the 2020 Count Basie Teen and College Film Fest. He won this award by receiving the most votes for his film High School Diffusal. BRTV posted their first ever completely remote show, BRRTV, Bridgewater Raritan Remote Television, to YouTube on Friday, April 3rd. Their next show is scheduled to post on YouTube on Friday, April 17th. We want to thank all of the staff and students who worked hard to plan, film, and edit segments in the video. Special thanks go to staff members like BRTV co-advisors Mr. Black and Mr. Lindsay for helping put all of this together. In addition, we'd also like to thank Mrs. Cahill and Mr. Bittner, Mrs. Hawkinson and Ms. Pellegrino, Mrs. Griggs, Dr. Borgo, Mr. Massa, and Mr. Wilson for collaborating with the BRTV team.
Sweet Reads is currently working on 2 projects that they are hoping to spread district-wide. The first is creating an online read-aloud library for kids whose parents cannot read to them. The second is a collection of poetry resources, which will include information about many different types of poetry. And keeping up with the competitive spirit while social distancing, the varsity softball team challenged the varsity girls lacrosse team to a step challenge on Wednesday, April 8th. The girls lacrosse team won the competition with an average of 22,270 steps, while the softball team averaged 11,423 steps. The varsity softball team challenged the varsity girls lacrosse team to a step
Thank you very much, Jasmine and Jessica. Next, we've got the superintendent's report. Dr. Lazarus.
The softball team averaged 11,000.
Break. I want to thank every member of the community for all they've done within our current situation. I want to thank the many staff members, both administrators and teachers, who worked through last week's spring break to ensure that we were prepared to return to distance learning today. We want to keep everyone focused on the here and now.
I want to thank
As a district, we're having conversations about today, tomorrow, and the future, but we need everyone to stay focused on right now. I'm in contact daily at this point with the superintendents across the county and with others throughout the state, and together, we're working on our current situation and plans for our return. But those conversations, first and foremost, follow the governor's direction, and second, follow the information that our critical agencies are providing to us on a daily basis. We're making decisions in 2-week cycles to ensure that we do not make a decision that is either ill-timed or uninformed. Now, as an administration, we are looking further out at instruction, at field trips, at events, celebrations, and ceremonies that are all essential parts of our district and our community. Administrators are working with staff and, when appropriate, students to identify and plan alternative ways to honor our traditions and to provide our current students with opportunities to enjoy events that they have long worked toward and looked forward to. Every effort will be made to hold our special events in the safest and most inclusive ways possible. We are constantly working on tomorrow, but we're asking that everyone else focuses on today. With that said, health and safety come first. As a school district, we're an essential piece of the BR community, and under these circumstances, we take our role in supporting the health and safety of our students, staff, and the members of this larger BR community with the utmost seriousness. To that end, we are still asking that everyone continue to stay home as much as possible. When we have to go out, practice social distancing. Please continue to monitor the information from our health experts, links to which can be found on our distance learning page, and please pay careful attention to yourselves and your family members. We are also asking, as we return to distance learning, that everyone maintain perspective. Our lives and the lives of our family members, friends, and neighbors hold the greatest importance. Regardless of the other areas of our focus, this must always come first. Connected to this, mental health is a key aspect of health and safety. We have from the onset published resources, and I want to remind members of our community that if you go to our main distance learning page at www.brsd.org/distance-learning, they are immediately found on the right side of the screen, and they offer support to families to help talk about the current situation, to recognize when problems may be forming, and to identify whom to contact for help. This includes our district resources for health and wellness. And as this situation continues, just please know that as a district, we are here to help. Beyond this, obviously, we are committed to the learning of our students. Marking period 4 began today. All of our start and end times remain the same as they were prior to break. Our middle and high school students, though, have moved to an A-B schedule. This move was made to help minimize the amount of work that students and their families have to focus on from day to day, and to provide longer periods of time for lessons, communication, and review. This schedule is not meant to double the amount of work from one day to the next for students, and it does not require that students be present during these times. These times, as they were before our break, are a guide. Teachers will provide more specific information, but our distance learning schedules are built so that they can work for everyone. As far as our first week back, these 4 days are a learning week, as we return to distance learning with an understanding that we will now be on this platform for the foreseeable future. Therefore, moving forward, I want to remind students and their families, please, that we are in this together. Do your best and follow your teachers, they know the way. That all of our resources can still be found on our distance learning webpage, and they're updated every day as we go. This includes our new schedules. Attendance still must be submitted every day by 10 a.m., please, with the same form and link that is available on our website and that has been in every email that we have sent. Please remember to log into Chrome as each student if you are submitting attendance. And as always, we continue to provide tech support. The email is available on all of our distance learning web pages, dldtech@brsd.org. Finally, we are working hard to minimize communications coming home. We recognize that this is a stressful situation, and as it continues to become our new norm, we've built the platform at this point. Our resources are available and growing, and our procedures have been well established prior to break. The most important communications now and moving forward are going to come from your teachers. Therefore, barring any emergent situation, our district communications, which had been daily, will now come out every Tuesday and Friday. I mentioned at our last meeting that our mission and value statements speak directly to situations like this. There could be no better description of the community we need to be now and over the coming months. Our administration, our faculty, and staff are all here to work with you and to find our way through this together. Mrs. Gladstone. I'm sorry, Ms. Barlow.
Thank you. Dr. Lazovic, were you going to go through the student safety data system report?
Yes, I am. I was actually going to hold that. I know that I had that on before, but I was going to hold that for new business. I had 2 items for new business. That's okay.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
In terms of the president's report, I really don't have a lot to say other than to continue to thank everyone for their efforts in making this go as smoothly as possible, from the staff, the teachers, the administration, the parents, the students. Just really appreciate everyone's support. And even though we've been doing a lot of things remotely, the Board of Education has also been very active with the remote setup, doing a lot of new things like interviewing virtually and just a lot of activity on this end too, which Mrs. Gladstone will go into in more detail. And just to reiterate, we need to be doing everything we can to follow the guidelines with social distancing, wearing masks, everything that we are being told. Just encourage everyone to support the initiatives to help make the community and everyone safer. Mrs. Gladstone? We can't hear you.
Sorry about that. You see, we're getting used to all this technology. Thank you, Mrs. Barlow. My report is not really a vice president's report role. It's going to be the chair of the superintendent search committee role. And I want to bring everybody up to date. And we, as you first know, the ad for the full-time superintendent was posted last week or 2 weekends ago. For the full-time online through nj.com and school boards and in print on Sundays for the next couple of weeks. And that's deadline for that is June 1st. And as was reported in the past, we have been seeking an interim superintendent. And I reported last time the search committee interviewed 3 applicants, and we brought the full board in on a second interview with one of the applicants. And I'm going to happy to say that we worked out a contract with this individual, Dr. Thomas Ficara. Mrs. Barlow will be reading a resolution shortly, but I just want to say that, like I said, the committee did a screening on Zoom 2 weeks ago, and then last week the full board in closed session interviewed Dr. Ficara. All 9 board members went around a couple of times with questions, and we're very happy to know that Dr. Ficara will be joining us after the resolution and vote. I just want to say that also he's on part of our meeting. We invited him. Hope maybe he'll say a few words after this section of the meeting. So Dr. Thomas Ficara has a wealth of experience. This is for an interim superintendent, wealth of experience to bring to Bridgewater Raritan Regional Schools. And he began his career with 19 years in the Elizabeth Public Schools, starting as a teacher and then various positions, which eventually led him to an assistant superintendent position. From there, he spent 6 years as superintendent in the Mount Arlington School District, it's a K-8 district in Morris County. He then went on to be superintendent of schools in the Morris School District for 12 years. After retirement, he served as interim superintendent in the Hamilton Township School District in Mercer County for a total of 22 months. And then he followed that with another 22-month term in the South Orange Maplewood School District. So the board was very impressed with his long track record of leadership, and we look forward to him joining Bridgewater Raritan as interim superintendent. So I'm going to turn it back to Mrs. Barlow for the resolution.
So I'd like to make a motion to approve Dr. Thomas Ficara as interim superintendent effective July 1st, 2020, pursuant to the terms and conditions of the contract as approved by the Executive County Superintendent at the daily rate of $873.85. Any discussion?
Seconded.
Any discussion? I'm sorry. And I know this came in, I'm going to say, we were working up until the nth hour to pull this together. And typically we go with the majority of the board, but my personal feeling is if anyone has an objection right now and needs more time to think about it, then I think we should hold this vote until the next meeting. But if I don't hear any concerns, then we'll go ahead with the vote.
Just to be clear, the vote is on the contract, and that's something that cannot be discussed in open session, correct?
Mr. Stars, can you answer that?
The contract will become public once it is voted upon. I guess you are accurate that the discussion for the contract would have to be enclosed.
Thank you. That's all I wanted to make sure.
Do you want to go into closed session to discuss it?
No.
Okay. Anyone else?
I'm good.
Okay, then can we have a roll call, please?
Mrs. Mead,
Yes.
Mrs. Thesey,
Yes.
Mrs. Hurley,
Yes.
Mr. Singer,
No.
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Mr. Joshi,
Yes.
Mr. Malik,
Yes.
Mrs. Gladstone,
Yes.
Mrs. Barlow.
Yes, motion carries. And congratulations, Dr. Fakera. I don't want to put you on the spot, but if you're comfortable talking, we'd love to hear from you, but we also understand if this is not a good time.
Sure. I'm happy to say a few words, and I generally do a little preparation before I meet the community, but as board president said, we were working up to the 11th hour on making sure we got this together. So first, I'd like to thank the board for working hard and really scrambling at times to make sure that things got put together for this meeting, taking the time to meet with me and ask me numerous questions for well over an hour and plus on more than one occasion. And I've heard from many people around the state that you clearly did your due diligence in checking references all over. And I can just want to assure the public you certainly did a thorough screening and a thorough assessment. I'd also like to thank your superintendent and your tech department for getting me up and able to do this because we had a little trouble ourselves. And the other thing that I have to say is that just to give you a little snippet of a little view on my life coming into this is my wife and I have been married for 40 plus years, and she's had a busy schedule and I had a busy schedule, and we both retired around the same time. And as we were transitioning through both being in the empty nest together for the first time for 24/7 round the clock, we got hit with social distancing. So from the bottom of her heart, my wife really thanks you for this, so that there's a light on the end of the tunnel, and I will be out of the house in July. So I just on a personal note, she thanks you for this contract. I'm look forward to having the next few months to meet with board members individually, senior staff members, staff as much as possible. I'm sure we'll be doing this a lot online and Zoom, and as long as these social distancing rules are in effect, and really getting a handle on the district. As I said in the interview process, I did my due diligence and reviewed the board online, reviewed your district, did all the research. But to make an analogy, it's a little bit like reading the guidebook about Paris. The Michelin guide just isn't going to do it, and I really need to get in, and I'm anxious to meet key communicators in the district, each of the board members individually, senior staff, teachers, students, and get a grasp and a feel for the culture and needs of the district, and looking forward to getting back into the thick of things and work on opening up school and planning for the future.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ficara. And we're also glad that we could help the marital situation at home.
Thank you.
Next up, we have got the committee reports. Academic Committee, Mr. Malik.
Our next meeting is April 22nd.
Okay. Community Relations, Mr. Joshi.
Yeah, the next meeting is April 21st.
Okay. And FFT, Finance, Facilities, and Transportation, Mr. Walker.
Yeah, we met on April 2nd at 11:30 a.m. In attendance was myself, Mrs. Mead, Mr. Singer, and Mr. Stars. The first item we discussed was the business agenda you have for this evening. The committee reviewed the agenda for the board meeting this evening, specifically the financial advisor and we had some specific discussions about the financial advisor, and the discussion there entailed that there's no fee until a referendum is done. It's basically the processing fee for the loan of a referendum. We talked about gym lockers and the Eagle Scout project at the high school, and we recommended all the items be approved this evening on the agenda. We had a brief discussion about the budget review on the 2021 budget. There's no new information from the state. There was some concern with the current status of things and changing on the taxes and and potential revenue shifts. If there's any word back from the state on that, nothing at this time. We had a discussion about a resolution to oppose A3902. We discussed this. For those who are unfamiliar with A3902, it is a bill that passed the legislature's 79-0, the representative side, but going to the Senate. And the bill is permitting, currently the way our taxes are is the townships collect the taxes, and they're in charge of tracking everyone down and getting all the taxes paid appropriately. And those who aren't paid appropriately, they are allowed to assess a fee to. But they by statute need to pay us that taxes quarterly on time. Peter can tell you the exact dates and how it works. But what they were saying is that it was permitting the townships to not pay that at a timely basis. And the biggest issue there is that it's a cash flow issue for us. We don't have the ability to have a line of credit or go out for a short-term bond to cover those areas, and it's the way it's set up. But the township does have that ability, so it's infringing upon us trying to make our bills and everything. So you saw that this evening. I think we'll discuss it later on. If you want to discuss it now, let me know. So. We had some other discussions. The committee discussed we currently have 2 SROs at the high school, and moving next year, we've let the township know that we're going to be going to the class 3 officers, the SLEOs for next year. 3 more of those, I think, is the approximate number. We had some questions. We asked about any updates to the architect's drawings, because there were in some of the discussions we had that we looked for some modifications based on discussion we had in closed session. We also asked for potential costs of air conditioning and windows for the district facilities. You can find those in the shared drive for all those. We also had an update on the BRHA small cafeteria fire and the remediation costs and the status of that. No recommendation there. And we adjourned at 12:05 p.m. And our next meeting is May 4th, still to determine the time and place. Any questions?
Barry, I just wanted to make it clear, and correct me if I'm wrong, that on the financial advisory, when you said there would be no payment till the referendum's done, it means. Go ahead.
It's not a loan. We take a referendum. A referendum is passed, and we apply for the bond or the loan. Thank you.
I just wanted everybody to know. So.
Yes, yeah. You have to pass a referendum in order to borrow money.
Yeah.
That's the difference between us and the township. We have to pass a referendum to borrow money. So.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Anything else for Mr. Walker? Okay, next we have the Personnel Committee, Mrs. Thesey.
Yeah, we had a meeting on April 3rd. I was unfortunately not in attendance. Dr. Lazovic, are you able to speak to that meeting at all?
Yes, if you give me 1 second, I can bring it.
Yeah, I believe in attendance was Jill, AJ, and Barry. And then our next meeting, while he's looking that up, will be April 21st. Sorry.
That's okay. While we're waiting, why don't we go on to liaison and delegate reports? Any reports to share? Okay. Dr. Lazovic, you still need a minute?
I'm here. I'm just bringing it up. Sorry, I was not. I should have known.
Okay, no problem.
0403. Yes, so can everyone hear me? I'm sorry.
Yes.
We met on April 3rd at 11. Ms. Gladstone, Mr. Joshi, Mr. Walker, I had present, as well as Dr. Villani leading the meeting, and I came a little bit late. Dr. Villani opened up by reviewing the addendum for tonight's meeting, going through all the personnel items at the time, and keeping the board then appraised of any changes that were made between then and tonight's meeting. Number two, Dr. Villani and I discussed with the committee members progress toward our reappointments, non-renewals, and job postings. As you all know, the second April meeting will be the largest when it comes to personnel as we reappoint for the 2020-2021 school year. I shared with the committee that Mr. Stars was continuing to gather information and actually has put some of that information into our shared drive. I know we shared that through brief regarding the possible referendum based on the questions board members have asked previously. We then discussed measures being taken to ensure that community members are not using our outside facilities, including playgrounds and fields, while we are closed due to this quarantine. Our buildings and ground staff has stepped up. And again, I've included that in multiple communications to the public that they truly are not safe and we are not cleaning them on a daily basis. So we have to make sure that everyone is aware of that. Then talking about our health and wellness update, we talked about the work of our high school administrators toward the crisis response during distance learning plan. They have since finished that. I want to thank a great number of our administrators. Obviously, Dr. Zell, is always my direct contact at the high school, but Dr. Greenberg and Dr. Godin really took the lead on this, did a phenomenal job. This is part of our pandemic response plan that we hope we never have to use, but in the event that the community suffers a loss, the district is completely prepared with communications and resources so that we are not trying to find something in the middle of a crisis, but we've been prepared ahead of time. So I definitely want to thank Dr. Greenberg and Dr. Godin. The meeting adjourned at 11:58, and our next scheduled meeting for personnel is April 21st, 2020, before our meeting of the 28th, where our large reappointment agenda will appear. Ms. Barlow.
Thank you, Dr. Lazovic. Any questions regarding personnel? Okay, we're now up to the first opportunity for public comment. Individuals and/or groups are invited to present their concerns, comments, and requests regarding the following action items to the Board of Education at this time. In accordance with board policy, members of the public are allotted one opportunity to address the board for a maximum of 5 minutes during this period of the meeting. As this meeting is being conducted remotely as a virtual meeting, comments may be submitted via chat, including your name and address. Please be advised that an audio recording of this meeting will be posted on the district's website. And I am not seeing anything in terms of any comments, but I'd like someone to confirm since I am not sure that I'm getting them.
I do see, if you scroll up, I don't know, do you see now?
No, I do not.
Okay. All right, we have Laura Kress, president of the BREA. She had commented on the first phrase was, I would like to welcome Dr. Ficara. That is very nice. And then the second is, it is nice. She wrote, it is nice to see everyone. Chris, Sue, and I are looking forward to having our previously scheduled BREA meeting with the board in the near future, virtually, of course. And lastly, she writes, the bill that Barry is discussing being followed up by the NJEA. We're looking to make changes that preclude districts from suffering. So I don't know if you got that. Did you hear that right? The bill that Barry was discussing is being followed up on by the NJEA. We're looking forward. not forward. We are looking to make changes. Sorry, we are looking to make changes that preclude districts from quote unquote suffering. Those are Laura Cress's comments. So thank you.
Thank you. And I know I owe some dates for when we can set up the meeting. So, and seeing no further comment, we'll close that section of the meeting. And we'll go to the action items. And first, we have approval of minutes, March 24th, 2020 regular session, and April 7th, 2020 special executive meeting.
So
So
moved.
moved.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Mrs. Mead,
Yes.
Mrs. Thesey,
Abstain on March 24th. Yes on the other.
Mrs. Hurley,
Yes.
Mr. Singer,
Yes.
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Mr. Joshi,
Yes.
Mr. Malik,
Yes.
Mrs. Gladstone,
You're muted, Jill.
Thanks, Lynn. Yes,
You're
sorry about that.
Mrs. Barlow.
Yes, motion carries. Next, we've got personnel 20-35 and 20-36.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
Thesey,
Yes.
Mrs. Hurley,
Yes.
Mr. Singer,
Yes.
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Mr. Joshi,
Yes.
Mr. Malik,
Yes.
Mrs. Gladstone,
Yes.
Mrs. Barlow.
Yes, motion carries. Next, we've got business 20-105 through business 20-108.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion?
I think if anybody has any questions on the financial advisor, this is just it puts it in place and puts a contract in place. So it could be changed if we had to, but it just it starts the process. It's nothing major and there's no financial impact.
Any other discussion?
Yeah, but just to also add on to what Barry said, because Peter does go to this firm and ask them questions, especially when we have questions. So again, there is no financial impact, but they are for all intensive purposes working for us.
Without any investment up front.
If we end up not going ahead, then what? They still don't want anything?
Correct.
Correct.
Any other questions? I just wanted to say thank you for the gifts, for the accessible path to the garden from Suhas Julapali. And roll call, please.
Mrs. Mead,
Yes.
Mrs. Thesey,
Yes.
Mrs. Hurley,
Yes.
Mr. Singer,
Yes.
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Mr. Joshi,
Yes on all, abstain on 20-108.
Mr. Malik,
Yes.
Mrs. Gladstone,
Yes.
Mrs. Barlow.
Yes, motion carries. Next, we've got special services, SS-20-35 and 20-36.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Mrs. Mead,
Yes.
Mrs. Thesey,
Yes.
Mrs. Hurley,
Yes.
Mr. Singer,
Yes.
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Mr. Joshi,
Yes.
Mr. Malik,
Yes.
Mrs. Gladstone,
Yes.
Mrs. Barlow.
Yes, motion carries. Next, we're up to other 20-33 and 20-34. If there's any discussion here, we will need to do it in closed session. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion needed? Okay, roll call, please.
Mrs. Mead,
Yes on 20-33, abstain on 20-34.
Mrs. Feasy,
Yes.
Mrs. Hurley,
Yes.
Mr. Singer,
Yes.
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Mr. Joshi,
Yes.
Mr. Malik,
Yes.
Mrs. Gladstone,
Yes.
Mrs. Barlow.
Yes, motion carries. And we're now up to the second opportunity for public comment. Individuals and or groups are invited to present their concerns, comments, and requests to the Board of Education at this time for any matters. In accordance with board policy, members of the public are allotted this opportunity to address the board for a maximum of 5 minutes during this period of the meeting. As this meeting is being conducted remotely as a virtual meeting, comments may be submitted via chat, including your name and address. Please be advised that an audio recording of this meeting will be posted on the district's website. And if someone could please let me know if we have any comments in the chat room.
There's nothing additional since I've read before, what I read before.
Actually, Laura added one.
Oh, she just must have just done it. Okay. Laura Kress also writes, I also want to add that everyone is working together. Our staff, Russ and Dan. I want to add that the supervisors and Karen have been working to help in every way possible. Thanks for
That's wonderful to hear. So thank you very much. And next we are up to old business. Is there any old business? Okay. Seeing none, we are now at new business. I know Dr. Lazovic has some things.
Yes, thanks, Ms. Barlow. I had two. The first is the report on the student safety data system for period 1. These are mandatory required public reports. The report itself, as always, will be put on the district website. And just as a matter of comparison, just want to share that when we look at report 1 from this year to the year past, we are incredibly close to similar numbers. When you talk about total incidents at our high school, 46 versus last period 1 was 41, 4 at our middle school versus 5. All of them are within a 5 to 10% of where the numbers were, except the overall incidents leading to removal is actually down significantly. The report itself, as the board members probably saw, is in a different format. The state has changed it. It also now includes a section on HIV trainings and programs. Wanted just to confirm with everyone that we do mandatory individual, anyone who's working with students has to go through a mandatory annual training on harassment, intimidation, and bullying. The trainings and the programs that you see then are usually not, I received this question from a board member earlier, specific to an incident that happened at a school. They are really about trends that we see, necessary trainings that different buildings have highlighted for their either anti-bullying specialists, administrators, or specific groups of teams of staff members. And so you'll see significant differences in the numbers because depending on the year, Van Holten may be doing 4 things on anti-bullying when you talk about their professional work versus Hillside, which may be doing 15. It really depends on year to year how many different individual staff members we're sending out and what people we're bringing in. But I wanted to confirm for the board that as far as all mandated basic requirements when it comes to training on harassment, intimidation, bullying, they are handled every year. I want to thank Dr. Lyon, the personnel office, because they ensure that all of our mandatory trainings for every single staff member are completed appropriately and on time. We've moved those timetables up to ensure that the staff members have that training as early as possible in the year while giving the staff enough time to, with all the other work that they have, make sure we complete them in an effective manner. So I just want to thank everyone. We will post, Ms. Barlow, the report on the main website under the board meeting. The second piece.
Can I ask a quick question before
Yeah,
you
sure,
move
please.
on? What is the difference between the training and the program?
So when we bring in programs, those are things when we're working either with students or groups of teachers that may or may not be specific to professional development, as opposed to the trainings where those are specific sessions where they are counting hours toward professional development.
Thank you.
Sure. Before I jump, I didn't mean to move too quickly. Any other questions?
Yeah, I just have one. So when you look at under the trainings and program, it says Adamsville didn't have any in period 1. Does that mean they're just going to fulfill the requirements later in the year, or?
So the requirements that you see are teacher by teacher. And so when we list this, what you don't see are the literally hundreds of trainings that the teachers went through for their individual. Mr. Malik. So it's a good question. Number one, they may have something scheduled for period 2, but they may also have hit their mandatory requirements that are not annual in a prior year.
Okay, thank you.
And so what they do, just again to clarify, is that under Dr. Singalisi and working with Ms. Jones, and now actually Ms. Madia, they determine what they need from year to year. And to Zach's good question, it's not always about HIB. Any other questions? Practicing my wait time. You're shaking your head no. I'm going to move on, if I may, Ms. Barlow, to my second piece of news, which was that in board brief, we did share with everyone, and we will be posting on the website, but we didn't want to make it public tonight, that for the second consecutive year, Bridgewater Raritan Regional School District is being recognized as one of the best communities for music education. It's a national award offered by the National Association National Association representing the entire country, and they look at a number of indicators such as student enrollment in music classes, our student-to-teacher ratio, as well as the credentials in higher education and attainment for our faculty. So it really comes from Dr. Craig and all the music teachers producing such a wonderful program that I know we've all enjoyed seeing the benefits of as our students go through. There's a significant application that happens every year. It includes narrative descriptions. It looks at our budget allocations, our resources, what facilities we have, as well as attendance of administrators and board members at our concerts. So board members, your attendance at those help significantly, as well as the other events. And it does measure community support, not just through concert attendance and volunteerism, but overall importance as expressed by the community for music. And so I do want to just congratulate all the students who are in the programs and the parents that support them, certainly all of our teachers, Dr. Craig as the administrator, and just again, thank the board for their continued support in this program. I mean, I certainly, Ms. Jones oversees them all. It is an academic program, so I want to thank her for her leadership. Mr. Stars for allowing us to spend money as necessary, but certainly the board members for making the kinds of decisions. And I know we just went through our program review for our performing arts. So I really, truly hope that the district continues to make an investment in the arts as it does in all of our other content areas. And Ms. Barlow, with that good news, that is my new business.
Okay, thank you very much. Definitely some good news there. And next, we have the resolution to oppose the Assembly Bill 3902. Is there a motion?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Thanks. Any discussion on this? And I think Barry had talked about this in his committee report.
Yeah, and I'll follow up with some of the comments Mrs. Kress said, that there are, I know there have been a lot of, I've had been a couple of conference calls with New Jersey School Board Association, and they have been, the legislative group and I've been working with the Steve Sweeney's office and all of, the NJAEA, the Business Administrators Association, the Supervisors Association, and the Superintendents Association together, all working together on this. So it's a main group of lobbying, working hard to get it right. It's not that we understand the issues that are coming from the pandemic and both financial impact is severe, but it's also understanding that the process and the system was set up so that don't hurt the school districts. We're trying our best we can. We don't have the ability to do the same financial management that they do. So it's something that's been going on. I hope that, I've sent out also, I think I've sent everybody on the board, if you can email your senators, and the senators and ask them to think about this and do what's right and have conversations with those groups. So I'm advocating it. It's a good way to say how we feel and put forth, we're trying to do what's best for the community and our taxpayers and our students especially.
Thank you, Barry. Any other discussion?
Wait, Barry, do you know the timing on, when this is supposed to be acted upon next?
It has not been given a place to be, it's not on the docket to be acted on yet. So They haven't made a decision. So it's what it could go on tomorrow, it could go on a week, but it's not been put on a docket yet to be voted on. So I think it's still being discussed, and I think it has to go to committee first. So, and then if there's differences in the bill, they've got to work it out in another committee after the vote.
Okay, thanks.
And I know quite a few other schools are also doing the same thing. So it may not even get out of the committee.
I mean,
Any other discussion?
I think there's going to be a substantial revenue change based on what's happening for next year, and it could impact everyone. So it's something to think about. And they're being proactive, which is great, and we're being, we're trying to be part of the process, which is important.
Any other comments? Okay.
There's
Roll
some
call.
kind, no, I'm sorry, Jackie, I have one question. Is there some kind of time limit to when you want the resolution to, like, is there a reason we're voting on it today and not reading it once and voting on it again later? Just be a reason you want it expedited?
Well, a resolution only takes once usually. We've actually been asked by the School Board Association to do this and numerous other places. And Peter brought it to the community to discuss. We could wait
I
another
realize
month.
it only takes once, but for things like this, I usually like to have a little bit more time. I know I sound like a broken record, but
Yeah. On that one, I mean, it's been out there. I mean, it's been circulated. So I'm sorry. I apologize. I didn't get you more information sooner, but I thought there was a lot of communication coming from the School Board Association already on this. And I think I emailed everybody two weeks ago about this too. I think I sent the resolution and the information I forwarded on a couple weeks ago. So I've been trying to keep everybody informed about this also.
The biggest point is we want to get it out there before they actually act on it or vote on it.
right.
That could be any time if they decide to do it.
Right.
If they come to terms on how they work it out.
Yeah, I think it's important enough to vote on it tonight.
Okay. You okay, Lynn?
Yeah, thanks.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Mead,
Yes.
Mrs. Thesey,
Yes.
Mrs. Hurley,
Yes.
Mr. Singer,
Yes.
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Mr. Joshi,
Yes.
Mr. Malik,
Yes.
Mrs. Gladstone,
Yes.
Mrs. Barlow.
Yes, motion carries. Is there any other new business?
Yeah, I have one question. How are students filing HIB and bullying reports, and what's the process? Like, as if they're going through the counselors, have the counselors emailed students saying that if you need to report anything, like, talk to me?
Mr. Malik, if I missed part of the question, I apologize, but I think what you asked is first of all, how students are, it's not just students, anyone can still file an HIB complaint, a parent, a friend, a student, a teacher, on behalf of a student. HIB the alleged target has to be a student, but anyone can file the report. We do have information on the website, so people can actually do it electronically. But I think most of the reports that we've had are still coming in through communication. And while that communication is no longer, it may be face-to-face, but it's really through an online platform like this. So whether it's an email and then a face-to-face conversation through a Google Meet, or a Google Meet conversation that's set up, because the student has requested for it. That's how they're being initiated. There were a number of guidance documents on how to conduct investigations, not just HIB, but investigations in general online, and how we kind of go through that, what we can and can't do, and how we can make decisions based on the information that we have. So those documents, Mr. Iacchini, shared with our ABSs, and thankfully we haven't had, knock on wood, that many. But obviously, we're well aware that with social media, we don't have to be face-to-face for bullying to happen, I guess is my point. The other piece, just as a reminder of the board, but more to the public, any of our district student communications is being assessed through a safety system that we put into place a little bit ago. And any concerning language, either of self-harm or of bullying or violence, administrators are informed and are able to follow up. And while I would like to say that since we've gone distance learning and almost all of our communication is online, electronic, we've gotten a huge uptick in the number of communications that are flagged. The vast majority of them are not with issue, but this is basically, and we've held fast to the system, even though it's been a huge groundswell because of so many people using online communication while we're distance learning. But this is really the only way we have some face-to-face contact with students. So we are doing, I guess, the best that we can, reaching out to parents, but also monitoring that communication and encouraging students to still come forward when they have any kinds of issues, HIB or otherwise.
And if it's found to be an HIB or a code of conduct issue, how are punishments going to be dealt with? Like if the punishment is 1 day of in-school suspension, would that just be applied once distance learning ends?
Yeah, so thankfully the idea of discipline I mean, it's only come up 1 or 2 times in those instances we were able to issue. But we're working like the other districts through exactly what discipline looks like when students are not physically here. I think some of the biggest issue is we're trying to make it restorative. There are things that we can have students do so they reflect on why things were wrong and make them do, in a way, extra work to think through how they can make better decisions moving forward. The other piece is that no matter what the student records are still going to reflect those kinds of discipline, even if the suspension looks differently. As we move forward, the record is the record. And so, I mean, when I talk to most of our students, we want the learning to come first. And then beyond that, they're always worried about what is my record going to say. And so that, especially here in this district, that goes a long way when we're trying to be to provide a disincentive for poor behavior and incentivize better choices. So.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else for new business?
Can I jump in? It was really meant to be part of my superintendent search or old business. We had the survey out to the stakeholders for input for the full-time superintendent. It was to be ending tomorrow, but I'm going to be drafting a little reminder email and extending it to this Friday. So I told Mr. Stars yesterday that I was going to get to that today. It didn't happen today, but if just want the full community to know that a reminder to fill out the criteria, the survey for the superintendent search as a reminder and an extension for a couple more days. I think it was set to expire the 15th. And if possible, we got to check with SurveyMonkey to extend it to this Friday. So look for that. Okay, Peter?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks. Any other new business?
I kind of have a question, new business oriented. I mean, along Zach's guidelines of HIB and the filing, what are we doing from a mental health standpoint for everyone during this time period? Keeping positive thoughts, or how we're doing it. I mean, what kind of message are we trying to get out there, commonality, district-wide, Russ? Are we doing anything? I'm just looking at the website and I'm, trying to figure some things out.
Well, I mean, at a district level, which is the farthest away from our students and our staff, I mean, you've seen every single one of my communications is focused on mental health and wellness. Every single one. We've created those extra pages and keep pointing people to distance learning. And there are significant resources on the distance learning page, not just for general health and well-being, but specific to COVID-19, specific to quarantine, distance learning, and et cetera. Our counselors and such are all listed on that page as well. I will tell you that our counselors have done a phenomenal job since we've been on distance learning. They all have, if you will, it's not an official caseload, but I'll use the phrase caseload, of students that are receiving all different kinds of supports. They have been reaching out individually to those students and making contact with either parents or students, depending on the need, whether it was one time or they can try to continue sessions. We are allowed to have conversations and such. And with new laws, provide counseling remotely. And so they're still doing those things. I mean, other than that, you have the teachers working with the students on a regular basis and still having communication, and us being cognizant, us talking to parents. But also with that attendance form, which is why it is so important, when we have students, regardless of whatever else is going on, who have not filled that out, we have a process in place for day 1, day 2, day 3, when we haven't heard from families. So safety is still in the forefront of all of our actions and our procedures, and doing really the best we can. I will say the staff has really stepped up to try and make sure that we're having regular connection with those students, either that we're having issues before or that either from their parents or from them have evidence that they're having issue now.
And the middle school counselors are indeed doing that, because last week during the spring break, my daughter did speak with the counselor. They had set up an appointment about a week ago and said, hey, let's just chat, and so they did do that. The guidance counselor did go out of her way and say, if you need to talk, or just let's talk, say hi. So they talked for about 10 minutes or so. And I think she was doing that with most of her students. So I think that's a great thing to do. Excellent.
I don't know if this is all of them, but one of the student assistance counselors made a Google Classroom, and she's sharing a bunch of resources for students on mental health, and like they're all free resources and just communication. And that's just also another way that the district is addressing.
Yeah, that's great, Jasmine. Thank you for pointing out. Just a reminder, all of our certificate staff members and even our business administrator, whose face you can't see right now, have Google Classrooms for the kinds to be able to share the kinds of information. So to Jasmine's point, our student assistance counselors, our guidance counselors, all of the mental health professionals that we have in district have been sharing and posting consistent resources and making individual resources available based on the needs they have within their caseload. So Jasmine, thanks for pointing that out. And AJ, thanks for sharing as well. But that even, I mean, over break, you have people still reaching out, making sure that students are doing okay.
Anything else for new business?
I have a quick question. So, Dr. Lazovic, you spoke during your report briefly about, plans and how we have to kind of, wait to make plans until we heard the governor says. For those big events, though, proms and graduations and class trips and those sorts of things, when can we expect any kind of timeline or a decision for those types of things? I'm sure that there are deposits that are due and things that, monies that need to be paid. And there's non-refundable dates or deadlines for those. So do we have any kind of information about that?
So with our bigger trips or with our contracts and those kinds of dates and money involved, our building administrators have already been reaching out to see what we have with timelines, because given where we are, sometimes we have many options, sometimes we have very few, and we're looking to exercise those options sooner rather than later. When it comes to field trips, as I said, we're working on a 2-week schedule. Ms. Jones and I actually had a conversation today about this again, but really everything that we had scheduled through Friday, May 1st is as of now canceled. But we are already looking at things like our teacher recognition ceremony and our student senior awards ceremony and graduations and 8th grade, those kinds of things, and how other school districts are doing those things. What I wanted to make clear is we are planning for those things. And if there are contracts involved and we have to make moves earlier than 2 weeks out, we're doing that. But other than that, what we're trying to do is, I think, follow the lead of the governor in the sense that as much as people are saying certain things are going to happen long-term, we don't know. And so we're following the information as it comes in, and we're making those decisions on these short-term 2-week chunks so that when things start to break and go our way with all the work that everyone in the community is doing, hopefully we'll be able to save as much of the school year and those traditions as possible as we finish out the spring and to begin the summer. It is possible that this could be even longer term, and we know that, but we're taking it one step at a time.
Okay, thank you.
Any other new business? Okay, seeing none. The next board meeting will be April 28th, and that again will be online, similar to what we did tonight. And hoping everyone stays safe and healthy. And is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed? Okay, thank you very much, everyone. Take care.
Good night.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.